Hello, how you guys doing? So in this lesson, I'm going to show you guys how to ink. Now, this is only applicable to those that might be doing comic panels because inking really doesn't have much place. I mean, there is inking in some forms of art out there that people do. It's like a borderline between painting and, comic work, and so it does have inks in it, which is kind of interesting. But or illustration or something like that. So if you're doing like an illustration, this might come in helpful. We might find it handy. But if you're doing like a painting or a storyboard, you're not going to probably be inking it. You'll probably just go from the sketch right to your painting. But we're going to go ahead and ink this. So one thing I like to do first off is after this is going to be my inking layer. I like to set my inking layer to a certain color. I set it to black. Now your program might or might not have this option if you're not using Manga Studio. If you're not using Manga Studio, Photoshop I know lets you choose different colors, but if not, you can go ahead and just name the layer. Usually by either double clicking the layer or right clicking the layer, and you can go to some sort of settings in it and you can change the name of the layer. And that's usually pretty universal in different art programs. If you're working in pencil and paper, what you might want to do is sketch in a blue pen pencil or make sure it's a artist erasable pencil, and or just sketch very, very lightly with pencil. And then when you go ink over it, make sure you use the proper inks that will actually go over the pencil you're using. And all right, so another thing I like to do is make sure to clear all the sketching. So I had already done this, but this is the sketch layer. You make your thing like this, and in this program you can go to Edit and then Clear Outside Selection. So if I had anything on this layer, let's say I had some sketch marks that were going outside of my layer like this, and I didn't want that there. So all I have to do is go around my panel, select that layer that I sketched on. I make sure I sketch on a different layer for each panel. Usually, it just makes it easier. If not, then you have to like select every single panel and then go after you have every single panel selected by going to, let's say, hold down the, believe it's, where's that? Alt button. Nope, Shift button. Yeah, Shift button lets you add, so I can actually add another panel there. I can use Alt to get rid of that panel. Not panel, but that marquee. Now we'll go to Edit, and we're going to go to Clear Outside Selection, and notice that it disappeared. On this layer, I actually make a different rectangle altogether. This is a new rectangle that becomes part of my inks itself. I'm going to start with the background, and I want to use a smaller pen from the background and get to a slightly bigger pen as I get to the foreground so that it adds depth to the actual inking. I'm not going to be adding any shading with the inking. That's a preference that you can choose to have if you're doing comics. I usually like to leave that to my actual color work, and I can add, really dark shadows and things like that with the color work itself or with the black and white work I do. All right, so let's get started with inking. Now, personally, I like to save myself a lot of time, and when I'm inking is I like to leave a lot of stuff to my imagination how I'm going to be inking. So I leave my sketches quite, I guess I leave them very unfinished. Now keep in mind that a lot of this stuff here in the background, I want to just keep it very basic. And the reason why I want to keep this stuff basic is it's really far away. And since it's really far away, I don't want really any details to show up. Most of the details I'm going to have show up in this very, very background stuff here isn't going to be done with just coloring anyway. So I just want very little detail back there. I don't want you to really be able to see what's really happening. In fact, I might not even show. They're so far away. These little poles would be very, very tiny on the bridge if there are any visible at all from this far away. And maybe some of these are even people or something. So I'm going to just kind of space them out differently, keeping that rule of composition in mind. Again, keeping it very, very basic. Most of this detail will be shown. Oops, I don't want something that sketch. I want clear, distinct lines when I do make them. And so I do is I pull my line fast and I pull it clearly. This is how you get nice, neat lines in your inking work. Now another thing I like to do is change the color of the background sketch. So I can do here is click on that and click on this lock transparent pixel. You have something similar in Photoshop and I think in other programs as well. And I can choose like a red or a pinkish type of color here. I like to use something bright, and this will only fill in what's actually on that layer. So now I can see my inks much easier. Use a really big brush to make it go by very fast, and bam. Hopefully that's not too bright for you guys. In fact, maybe I should try to make that a little bit darker for you guys can see easier. I don't want to like burn your eyeballs out. Then I like to lock that layer so I don't accidentally ink on that layer. It happens and it's very irritating when it does. Right, so the background is, like I said, it's pretty much, this is it right here. I mean, we don't need much. Oops, make sure I choose black here. We don't need much in the background here. It's just, most of this I'll do with painting. I'm going to show just very little details in the cars because they're so far away, you wouldn't really be able to see anything. These are the flying vehicles. Maybe that one's kind of more of an undershot. Right, and that's all you have to do. So that's pretty much it for the background. I mean, I might hint at a couple little windows just to remind myself that, hey, you know what? You need to paint a bunch of windows in the background here. There's cool little tricks I'll show you when we deal with coloring. We still have some background buildings here. Now this is a little bit more closer to us, so I can add just a little more detail. I'm not going to change the size of my pen, but I could add just a little more detail. Some weird kind of futuristic, just little designs and stuff. These might be like little panel boxes and things like that. And little circuitry that runs on the outside. I might make the windows a little bit bigger. This building here is, I think it'll be maybe a glass building, not really sure yet. I won't. I might actually just add really quick thin lines just to kind of show that this might be a glass building and it has like, set windows like that in it. And it goes all the way down past where we can't see. Now I'm going to change my brush just a little bit bigger. Now I'm going to a size 4 brush as I'm moving more into the things that are a little bit more in the foreground now. So I got this tree. Now one thing I like to do with trees, little quick tip that might actually help you guys, is kind of just keep the outside, make sure it's random because, things in nature are random and overlap things. So I'll go like that and I'll have another thing overlapping it. So I'm having this overlapping happening right in the picture itself, like on the same object. So not just am I overlapping objects that go into the background, the further they go in the background, but I'm actually overlapping objects within an object itself. So having like some branches overlap other branches a little bit like that. Remember, this is going straight into a circle in the ground. In my world here, that's how things work. Might just add a little bit of detail to the trunk of the tree there. Now that's the main branches here of the tree. Notice I try to keep it very, random, trying to get too many patterns going on. Our brain tends to think in pattern ways and it tends to develop patterns. And so if you see them, just erase them and kind of get rid of some of them and start over. I've trained my brain, I think, over time to not have so many patterns. Now the main thing I'm going to do with the lighting is, as I do inking too, I kind of want to keep some sort of lighting in mind to where I do details. I like to put details in the shadowy area. That is, the shadowy area is going to have a lot of inking details showing that that's where the darker part of it is, the heavier weight of the object is. I think most of the light is going to come from the background here and kind of shine through, but in the foreground we're going to be lit up by this car here by a lot of neon lights and stuff like that. But for the most part, my main light is going to be coming usually always, from, some of it will be lit from the back, but then the rest is going to be from a front view. It's what I call the typical photographer's light. It's your main photographer's light. It can be on the right or left hand side. I usually do on the right hand side. And so imagine it looking like that. Basically, it means if you imagine the light as a source, it is to the right of us. Let's say we're the cameraman, right? And we're looking at it with our camera. And the light is to the right of us, to the right of the camera. It's above the camera a little bit, and it's kind of swinging toward us a little bit. So, yeah, I hope that gives an idea. So if it was a ball right here, a sphere, the light would be right about there. That would be the highlight. All right, so let's continue inking. Now remember, these things in the background didn't need too much detail, because if you put too much detail into the background, then it will distract from things in the foreground. I'm going to just put a little bit of background shrubbery like that, just to kind of show that it has dimension. I might do some cross hatching just to remind myself that, hey, that's background stuff. Let's go ahead and just make a little tree here, a little like a bush. I'm going to keep this one more flat like that. All right, just a little bit of detail, not much at all. We'll have our little dispenser thing here in the background. like so. At this point, I'm not worried about shadows and things like that. Sometimes I might like hint at it, going, okay, well the shadow is gonna go kind of behind it like this and up on the wall like that. So sometimes I might draw some shadows in there if I don't forget them, but that's typically why I leave that for coloring. All right, so now I'm going to work on this object here. This is the booster. Another trick sometimes I like to do is overlap my ink. So make this one much thinner. I'll show you what I mean in a second. It really applies more to, I'll make sure that goes back to a vanishing point. So let me go ahead and get rid of that. It's got to go at an angle. Now I can turn my whole tablet or I can turn my body to do this line. And if you're working digitally, I recommend doing that. However, if you're not working on a tablet, you can actually turn, like right now I'm turning mine to have, it's almost like turning a piece of paper, and then I can do that line like that. If you are unable to turn it, then just try turning your body a little bit and looking at your screen. Now, if you're working on like Intuos or something like that, it can be very difficult to actually pull off. I used to work with one for a long time, and I found that to be one of the hardest things to do was when I wanted to do it. So one of the easier ways to do it, if you have an Intuos, is to actually turn it with the right here. On this program, I can actually use my fingers to touch one, so you can turn the page like that and then do it. And sometimes I find that even faster. Then you just click this little button right here to reset it back to its thing if you're in Manga Studio. Photoshop, I think, has a way to do as well in Manga Studio using a regular tablet, if you're not using like a touch tab like I am. If you're using a regular style tablet, oops, I didn't want that to happen. You can still do that. I just can't remember the button. So just check out the buttons in whatever program you're using. There we go. And once you have the buttons figured out, you can easily hit buttons on your keyboard or whatever on your tablet. You can turn your thing around like that and get different angles that you need. Like for example, when I'm drawing these things here, well, they're up and down, they're pretty easy. But if I'm drawing that train, I might want to go and have it like this. This makes it easier for you guys to see. Instead of me actually turning my tablet, I'll just turn the actual page itself. You kind of see what I'm doing. Yeah, and I might actually add a little extra details that aren't actually in the sketch at all. But I want to be careful also not to add too many details to this thing. So maybe some sort of lights that shine out like that. You gotta be careful not to add too much detail to your background stuff because you want to distract from the things in the foreground. Now those are the walking corridors between each caboose. I guess it'd still be called cabooses even though it's some weird future looking thing. That just kind of shows maybe there's some sort of design on there or something like that. And little details like that, just they go a long ways, really they do. And this is going back into the background there. But just adding little little lines and stuff like that go a long way in your picture. Now if I want to return back to normal, I just go like that, hit that button and zoom out here. Now I have to switch off and make sure that my background's looking correct. And I'm gonna use a slightly bigger brush for the car. Now you guys here are gonna be a really big treat because normally I can't do this in real time. I might even go to a 5. I can't do this in real time because on the actual course itself, this is, for those that don't know, this is actually part of my course on how to draw backgrounds on Udemy. Now Udemy has certain rules and guidelines about how to draw or how to have your course structured. And part of that and how to have your course structured is that you can't go over 20 minutes on a video. I don't want to have part 1, part 2, part 3 of the inking part. Now I'm doing that to show that this is the underside of that. I'm going to kind of curve this design as well so it shows that there's three-dimensionality there to the object, if you can see what I mean. So I'm showing that there's an underside to this shape by having just a little line. It's an easy trick you can do, and then pull the design forward and up like that, and that will show that it has some three-dimensionality to it. But anyway, so I have certain restrictions on the length of videos and things like that I can do, and it's 20 minutes. I can't go over 20 minutes. I just want to have a part one, part two of all these inking videos, and also they want it to be more concise and to the point. And it's unfortunate because a lot of people like the level of detail that I put into in my real-time videos, and they don't want me to do that on Udemy really. So, like I said, you guys get a treat by being able to see the full real-time version of this because they're not going to, unless they're unless they're part of this YouTube group. They unfortunately won't get to see the real-time version of me inking this entire picture. So that's a special treat that I gave to you guys. I could have just threw away. I was going to actually, but I'm like, you know what? I think that maybe my paid subscribers would appreciate a real-time video of how I ink. Now, one thing I'm going to do too is notice I went really light because I have pressure sensitivity on this pen. So I can go really light on some of these lines, and on some of the stuff I'm leaving because for a smaller brush. So I think about also the details that are inside of the object as well, and I want those lines to be thinner. Now I'm still debating whether or not, I think I want to have a slightly different shape to the background here, or to the thing, kind of have an indent and come out. That way it's just not all one, just, I don't know, rectangle shape. Looks kind of boring. Another thing I'm also debating about is whether or not I should add any sort of details underneath the car. So like for example, what if there's like these, pieces of, I don't know, metal and stuff like that that can do different, I don't know, do different things. Maybe we can have another one over there on that side. This is actually coming off the side of the car to add. It's like almost like side lift things, whatever. But I don't know. Maybe there's like little details that we don't know. Like I don't know. I can't really think about what is underneath the car, so I'm just doing random shapes that I get from different sci-fi stuff and everything. Like these different, just add something. It just makes it look a little bit more like developed. I'm gonna make all this one piece of glass right here, just one piece of black glass. And sometimes I might even ink stuff like that, like just to remind myself, okay, that's a piece of black glass, and maybe there's a little window reflection in it like that, but the rest of it is black. So there'll be some things like that I might just go and ink it. For the most part, I try to stick with coloring. It's just I'm like, I don't know if I'll remember that, so I want to make sure to get it done now. And I can color the reflection a certain color. Now I'm going to switch to a smaller brush where I can do these, inside designs here because I want to make sure that they show up, and they got to be kind of small. Now here's another thing where, I could probably leave to actual when I do the coloring part. I'm just gonna go ahead and ink it, and if I feel like I need to have it affected by light at all, then I'll just add it on top of the ink layer, and that way it'll kind of dull out the. I'm gonna kind of give this also a three-dimensional shape by underhooking it and do a little, doing just a thin little line right here. What that does is it gives this three-dimensionality look to the side of that car right there. And I'm gonna kind of go. I make sure when I first did the sketch, I didn't do the lines in perspective correctly there. Let's go to a slightly bigger brush to fill in the squares. Size 5 now. Yeah, and also some of this can be kind of boring too, and that's another reason why, for the course I don't leave it all in there in real time. Oops, I don't know what just happened there. What did I just get rid of? I just clicked something. I don't know what I did. Let me see here. See if I can undo it. Okay, so it's not something I don't think I did. Let me see, undo one more time. What the hell did I just click? Oh, I guess I accidentally clicked the paper layer off with my knuckle. I still got to get that glove. I haven't done that yet. So, all right, so now we got the car done. Everything's starting to look cool. Let's go and look at it. All right, cool. So details are starting to come in. I'm going to stick with this size, maybe 3 or 4 brush, and do some of this stuff back here. Now, another thing I was careful not to do when I designed this round thing in the background is notice none of these lines actually run into each other. If this line were to run into that thing right there, it wouldn't look right. It'd have a tangent line. So what I'm talking about is this line right here and this line right here don't overlap. And it's part of, remember I taught in the, well actually depends whether, actually no, wait, anyone listening right now is obviously listening on YouTube. So yeah, that's something I teach in the course. So it's part of, sorry, hold on. Sometimes it's hard to talk and draw at the same time. It is part of the, what is that word I'm looking for? Sorry, I don't know why I can't think of this word right now. This is what I mean by double line. Sometimes I'll do like a line and I'll like purposely like double it up a little bit just to kind of show some dimensionality to it. And I can look and see what it looks like. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word, but it's part of the composition part of the course. And believe it or not, a big part of drawing backgrounds is composition. It's that everything is working toward the ultimate goal, which is showing your center of interest, which is, in this case, is this little guy right here. Again, if you're interested in that and how to draw cool backgrounds and how to get to this point, definitely want to check out my course on my website. Just go under courses, and you'll see there my new course is how to draw backgrounds. That's masterpaintingnow.com. All right, so now what I want to do is, let's see here, maybe add some more details to, I don't know, I don't want to distract, so I want it kind of plain. I might add some, I don't know what this is exactly, maybe it's some kind of weird light device that is kind of lit up. Again, I really don't know what that is. This is a level of detail I'm adding to it. I think that it's some sort of light thing or something. I'll probably make it glow, not sure yet. This right here, I decided I didn't want it square like in the Google SketchUp, so I'm not going to make it square. I'll kind of show the roundness as it kind of goes back in space, and we'll add a couple little lines. And I won't necessarily draw all these lines all the way through connecting. Some of them I will, some of them I won't, and that's just to show that it's like brick. And let's go with a slightly bigger brush here. And I'm going to start making some of this stuff here a little bit bigger. Now, it's really important, I think, to try to get nice, smooth lines. If you have to take a couple tries to get that nice, smooth, fast line, I think it's better to have a nice, smooth, fast line than it is to have like a slow line. And if you want a slow line, I recommend Illustrator. You know, with a real pen, you have to do the same kind of thing. And I like to, you know, take my traditional methods that, you know, I've grown accustomed to using and use those right in with, you know, my digital methods. I basically take the traditional method route of how I ink and kind of use that same pen control with my digital inks. Now this is behind the car, so I want to keep it a little bit thinner. I don't want it to compete with the car. I want the car to be in the foreground, and so that's why I want these lines to be thinner and kind of fade off more into the background. Even though, you know, these buildings are in front of all that back there, I really want that car to stand out more than these buildings. So that's why I'm keeping them smaller. Now the car kind of blocks what's happening. I don't know how I pulled that up. The car's kind of blocking what's happening here with this piece, so I don't know if I want it to go all the way up like that. Maybe I'll have it go up part way, like to here. What the hell? Okay, I don't know why that just happened. Let's see. I think something's still pressed down. Hold on. All right, so I might just have this go up part way right here. And this right here is going to show, I want that to kind of come in front of that object. There we go. And I'm going to have this, I think, kind of going back to that point of perspective. Maybe give it a little bit of a top like that. So it's like a separate piece within there, as you can see, just kind of doing its own thing. I don't know, in which case then I might actually have it coming out this way, connecting to that edge. That it's kind of like a wall and then a little device. I don't know. Don't know if I like any of that actually. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm just not going to have the line there at all. To hell with that line. Maybe I'll have a little bit of line and have it come back like that. And again, not all your lines have to connect, so that's something to keep in mind. Like that when they come up there to that where the car's at, I'm not even going to connect that line all the way through. And that's the beams of the headlights of the car. Pull this down to right there. All right, cool. So notice how the lines are, they're kind of thicker up here. I can even emphasize this more. And get thinner as they get toward the car, almost as if they're disappearing. Now, another way you can do that is you can actually just do them bigger and then use an eraser tool and kind of erase as you get toward that car. As it is, I need to use my eraser tool here anyway, because you can see the building was going inside of that piece. So there you go. So where like lines are touching sometimes, I'll just kind of leave them off. That way it lets that car stand out more, and it doesn't look like it's like intersecting with it. It kind of gives a different look than if you had a thicker line intersecting with the car. It makes the car look like it's more in front. Right now, it's when we start getting the foregrounds where we really start to add a lot more detail to stuff. And so let's go ahead and do the female. We can't add too much detail to her face because she's so tiny, so I'm going to use a very small brush for her face. But let's try to get some detail here. And this is where I like to use those double lines as in hair a lot, where I do a couple lines overlapping, like 1, 2 like that. And it kind of adds that detail of that curl. I'm going to have her eye kind of big here. I'm going to have her mouth maybe like open like she might be talking or something. Remember, she is a robot, so, but her face is, more normal like a human. I think that works now. I didn't see this in the sketch, but I do have a slight contingency right here, so I'm going to just go right over it with her. I can't. There's a tangent point, not contingency, a tangent line right there. So I'm trying to avoid that. Maybe by having her hair darker right there, it kind of does. It's still running right into that building. See how her hair is running right into that bottom building line? That's a tangent line. You want to avoid these things. I should have worked it out in my sketch. So now I'm going to have to bring her hair down here. That way I avoid that tangent line. Tangent line where you have two things running into each other. And actually, I don't only want to shade that in. Maybe just on the top a little bit. Make sure her face looks okay. I'm kind of give her sort of an anime look because she's a robot, so I want her to kind of look different than other people. And she doesn't have nipples. These are actually just design lines to kind of resemble nipples, sort of, but to still be not nipples. And that line will go right there and right there. Just kind of show that has three dimensions to it. I might add extra lines and stuff like that throughout her design here, just to kind of show, that she is a robot. She has these extra like pieces that come together like that. Some of the lines I won't close all the way, which I think again adds more style to the inks. And this line actually, okay, this leg should be thicker. It's from a side view like that. That's still not totally correct. Something doesn't look right there. So I'm gonna have to bring her leg up a little bit higher. That's what sucks about. I'm gonna have to do another. I'll worry about that later, but I'm gonna have to end up doing another layer and do the actual rim again because I just erased part of it, so not too big of a deal. I'm gonna kind of have this leg kind of coming out a little bit farther, like this here, maybe. And then maybe her calf's coming down. See how that looks like, almost like if she's walking. No, see, this is something I should have had in the sketching phase worked out. So instead, I might just kind of pull it down like this and just kind of keep it basic, and hopefully it looks right enough. It doesn't matter, it's a quick background, I mean, it matters, but at the same time, you have deadlines to meet and things like that. You don't want to spend too much time on one thing. If there's just one person in the background whose, you know, legs look a little odd, it's not a deal breaker. Right, so her hand is kind of holding something here. I want to remind myself that there's some sort of magic happening here, and there's some sort of display that's happening there. Some sort of ad. I'm not really sure what's going to go there. I'll figure that out in the color part. This right here is going to be a person, regular person walking. We want to give him kind of futuristic clothes, and so I'm going to have this like cool kind of collar coming out like this. Kind of a double collar, kind of like this weird, almost like, not like they're wearing armor, but almost like they're wearing armor. And I don't know, still being, I think I might make this a dude, so let's go give it a kind of a cool looking dude cut. Add a little bit of side hair here, the ear. Maybe a little bit of chops like that. Let's come down here. Just a small nose. I don't want much as far as lips go to really show from the side view here. Very, very little detail. Even though he's kind of in the foreground, I don't want much attention drawn to him, and he's very tiny, so gotta just give it a little bit of detail. Since it is a guy, I need to change the shape of the chest here. And the shirt, maybe he's wearing still a shirt. It's like a long sleeve. And it comes down like that so we can't see where it goes. And then maybe he has it like this and double belt thing for his pants and shirt. I'm not really sure. I think it's kind of cool. Again, you can spend a lot of time developing your very basic detail for the hand. I'm just kind of making it look, that's a little too, not enough detail actually. In this case, I need like a couple little hints of fingers kind of curling up there like that. But you can spend a lot of time, especially in fantasy, sci-fi type stuff, really developing clothing and all that kind of stuff. Um, it's almost like a whole other job within a job because you're taking on the job of basically a costume designer in a movie. So when you're a comic book artist, if you're the main artist, the actual penciler, that's who usually does most of the thinking and all the work. I'm not gonna say they do all the work, but they definitely do more work than most people because the penciler has to design everything. I'm gonna use the shift key here to pull straight lines with a really small brush because these details are gonna be too hard to sketch by hand. Anyway, so the penciler is like the designer. He does everything. He's like okay, think about if it was a movie. The penciler is like the director. He is, the costume designer. I mean, he's the set designer. He's doing all those jobs that it takes to do a movie, and it's a crazy amount of work that he has to do. And that's, in this case, that's what I'm doing for this panel. And also, if I were to, do this comic myself, I'm doing all that work myself. I'm designing everything. Now, if someone's a writer, they do some of the work for you. They kind of tell you, give you an idea sort of what things look like and so forth. But most of that is up to the penciler to really decide. Just remind myself and do some very, very thin line work here. And having a little bit of detail here and there, like, I don't know, almost like little texture and stuff with the inks is kind of a good idea. I still got to draw that circle back there. I forgot about that. And just to kind of show that it is a circle on the ground, I want to kind of shade it in a little bit just to show that that does go in the ground. All right, so let's turn off the pencils for a second, see how it's looking. So everything's looking pretty cool. Now some of this detail here, I might actually use the original thing for. In this case, I think it was that file. What did I have on this layer? Okay, there we go. Actually, I think I'll use that one. And this will help me get those details in better. So I'm gonna actually turn off the sketch. Well, I mean, some of the things I actually need to sketch up for. But I'm gonna turn off the sketch for just a second for some of these details. Let's go ahead and unlock this and turn it down just a little bit more. Lock again so I don't actually draw on it. And there's some of these details like in here that I kind of really want to make sure I get down. And I'm not really going to be using, these exact details. I have my own. Actually, I probably have to look at my sketch here too because I got to see what I did with it. Okay, see that line was unnecessary because it's being covered by something. So first what I'm going to do is I'll draw what I know I have already drawn here detail-wise. Then I'll go in and use that to do other stuff. Now what I was thinking about here, this is an inside detail, so I'm using a smaller brush. I don't need to use that smaller brush, but I'm thinking about this as some kind of like window. You might be able to see a little bit of 3D-ness on this side. You got to think about when things have like, 3D-ness to them, what angle you're looking at, and can you see that 3D-ness of that object? Like these little things up here on top of this building, I can't just make them flat, right? They go like this. They're kind of falling that perspective, but they have another thing right here, another perspective line that I have to follow, right? Because you can kind of see the side planes of these objects that are going back. Oops. I don't want that like that. I want it pretty much parallel with that thing. This is kind of like I don't know, some kind of like steam thing. So I got steam coming off here. I'm going to have it kind of more detailed toward the bottom. And as it goes up, it's going to kind of, the lines and get more wispy and get farther away. And then like that. Now I'm just going to have them just go straight to like smoky lines and have them kind of overlapping like this. And this is reminding me to kind of put some, lighter texture on another layer. I'll show you when I do that when I color it. I definitely want to have, signs and stuff that say things, but sometimes I leave that stuff for the actual color work. Now, sometimes I'll cheat when I'm coloring. And some people call it cheating or photo mashing, whatever. But I'll actually just grab a piece of stained glass and kind of like cartoonize it and put it right here in the coloring process. I'm going to leave that open for stained glass. All right, so let's go and get some details in our statues here. I'm going to have the balls first, have their, I might even, just to remind myself that, hey, maybe they're kind of crystalline type spheres or something. And also, I don't know, just sometimes just having this kind of stuff, a little bit of line work inside your inks, even though you're going to be coloring it, still it looks cool. So remember her thumb is coming behind this way like that. I might keep her hand just a little bit smaller than what I had designed here. Like so. Still think the hand might be a little too big, but we'll find out in a second. Let's see how that looks for a second here. I mean, it is coming out toward us, so I don't know. It still might be too big. Not too big of a deal if you don't want to redraw it. What's really cool about, again, when you're working digitally is you can just grab that hand, make it a little bit smaller, kind of fit it in here still. And then we go, okay, so that looks cool, and then just ink right over it again. Just to make it look, sharp. So I want to show that that's going inside the hand there. Hands wrap it around. All right, now I might go ahead and, I think I made these lines originally to be straight anyway, but just in case, I'm going to use the shift key and pull these lines straight down. And yeah, it looks like they are straight. And this one I'm going to kind of just offset a little bit. Up like that. These lines right here I can have go straight. This is what's showing where she's going inside. Like so. I could make them thicker if I wanted to, but I think there's no need to. All right, now with her, I just want a little bit of detail in the nose and stuff. I don't want to have too much detail here. Her eyes also, I might even keep them a little bit open and just kind of keep them plain because she's going to be colored, the color of her statue because she's a statue. Another thing I might do too, and so her hair is also going to be more plain. So basically what I like to do when I do comic work is, even in a painting I would do this as well. So everything else is giving a much more level of detail to where it looks real. And so what I do for the statue is I kind of give her, to give this kind of more surreal look to her. And notice I put some of these lines right together, just to kind of show that they're being pulled together. But anyway, so what I like to do, just kind of show some shadow there, is I'll give a different, like, okay, you know, in cartoons like Family Guy, you'll see this kind of, oops, you'll see this kind of, let me go ahead and stop drawing just a second if I can talk. You'll see this kind of like background paintings, right? And they'll be very simple, like literally, you might just see a head here and a head here, and then like the bodies coming together. And literally, it's like this is what you see in the background. It's a very, very basic, picture like that, and then maybe they have ears and if they have a hat on or something like that, it'll show that. But that's it, and then they'll be colored in, and that's the basic shape. So it's almost like abstract, and it allows you to know that hey, that's in the background. It's different than what you see in the foreground. And so I do like the some similar statues is that I'm gonna add like less detail to the statue, so it doesn't look too real. So in the eyes and stuff, just kind of keep them blank. Maybe in eyebrows and stuff like that, and like lips, just kind of keep them simple. I'm just gonna kind of keep all this simple. This is like her neck thing she's wearing. Like that. It's kind of just show that there's some shape there. With her dress too, I might go ahead and just add very simple lines now. From this point on, we're just gonna keep it very, very simple here. And of course, when she's colored in the shape, or in the color, in the shape, in the color of a statue, it's going to really help sell that. I'm going to go ahead and use the ruler tool to pull this down here. Make sure it's like straight. And then I'm going to use a smaller brush for the other side. Kind of adds dimension to the pole itself. That might be a little too small. Let's do that. Bam, okay. Sometimes I overlap those lines like that to kind of adds, I don't know, some kind of dimension to them when you do that. And that's pretty much it for her. So she's very, very simple. And that way, when I color the all one color as the color of a statue, it'll look like a statue. And maybe I can even, show that there's some wear and tear. And just to remind myself too that she is a statue. Well, I mean, obviously I'm not going to forget that, but this might remind myself to add some texture in the actual coloring part. And I might even like have, maybe there's a crack or something right here, like it got old. And so she has like some crack here like that. And this will just kind of help sell the idea that it's a statue as well. All right, so let's come down here now. Let's add the details to this indent. And this kind of shows that it goes in. Just add a little bit of shading to kind of show that as an indent. And that side, I think I'm going to leave some of that for the actual. Yeah, I'll leave some of that. I'm going to have this statue be a little bit different. Less detail as well because it's further in the background. I'm going to just very barely just hint at some of the shapes. And just like really fast here. A lot of this stuff, is done very, very quickly because, you're working fast. You're trying to get through, pages. You're trying to bust out comic pages on a regular basis. And if you have a comic book like me online, end of all, which you can get to my website, you'll see it there on my website. Just go to masspaintnow.com and you'll see end of all. Just kind of give a simple basic idea of hand gesture there. And you have to come out with a page every week, whatever, and you have a real life you have to live as well. So you can't just sit there and dedicate all your time to working on a comic page or comic pages. It's not a living. You're doing it for free. It's for people's entertainment. And if it doesn't bring you any money, and that's something that you're doing out of your own free time. Sorry, I'm just trying to get this done fast. So here, let me just show you real quick. Quack. Just gonna do this really fast here. Try not to talk for just a second. All right, so there we go. And so anyway, you're just trying to get this done as fast as possible. You still want to look at obviously for your fans and stuff, but at the same time, you're like, you can't spend all this time on just a background. You know, it's just what's one panel, a part of telling the story. You know, and they're expecting that pages to come out. If you spend all your time, you know, doing that one panel, then then you have a hard time making your deadline. You know, and you might find yourself getting pushed behind, and that's just a really sucky feeling to get pushed behind like that and feel like you can't keep up with the demand, and that's what happened to me with my comic book End of All. And so I end up having to hire an artist to help me out. I'm still doing like a lot of the, well, not a lot of them doing still all the designs. So if there's a new creature design or anything like that I don't have drawn previously in the comic book, because I've already done 35 pages. Originally I had 65 pages done of it, but I kind of lost half of those somehow. I don't know what happened to them. They just literally vanished from my freaking computer. I even tried to use the FBI backup software. I bought it and everything, and to try to get my shit back. And nope, it was nowhere on my computer according to that software. So that was very strange. So I don't know if I got hacked or what happened. Anyway, and I only lost half the pages, so I don't know why they didn't take them all. But so I lost half the pages when I was re-uploading them again to start doing the comic book again. And I was kind of excited because I had a little bit of free time extra because I didn't start a bunch of other projects like I have now. And so I had a little bit of free time. I'm like, okay, cool. I can actually start doing my comic book again and finish that for the fans. And then I wasn't able to because one, I was really discouraged because I had to do all those pages over again. And on top of that, I was like, man, I just had too many projects. I started a bunch of the projects that I don't have to get into, but I do a bunch of different stuff, different channels and things like that. So there's just too much on my plate, and I was just like, okay, I'm not gonna be able to do this. But I felt really bad, so that's when I decided recently to hire an artist to help me out and to do the pages for me. So he's doing most of the drawing, or he's doing all the inking and all that and the drawing. Some of the panels I'll like do sketches if there's something particular I want, or I might even sketch the whole entire page out just to like, this is how I want it to look. I'm very, very detailed in my writing. I say everything that happens in my writing, so it's down to the very, T of what I want. That is that, um, hold on a second. I go panel by panel, so I'm like, hey, panel one, I want this particular look. Um, the girl, actually, hold on, this is hard to talk and do at the same time. I actually kind of like some of this detail here, so I'm gonna actually kind of keep some of this going all the way down there like that. I'm just gonna pretend like that's one long piece right there. This is only part of the doors we can see, so I'll read part of it to you just a second here so you can see how detailed I get. That way, the artist doesn't have to imagine much as far as, panel layout and things like that. And this might be something that's important to you as a writer. Like some comic book artists, they just want the basic idea and they think they're good enough that they can figure it all out. I know that a lot of these artists aren't really good at composition and things like that and paneling, like how you basically cinematography, because you really want to take cinematography classes if you want to make comic books, even because you need to know what's important for the shot and how to shoot each shot, and what should be shown. And honestly, a cinematography class is the best thing you can possibly take for art in general, not just comic book work, but for art in general, because every piece you make, if you want to do like fine paintings, even that cinematography is a huge help to know how to compose your picture and everything, and what's important to see, how to tell that story in that one picture, in that one painting. Real quickly, I'm gonna pause this. All right, so real quickly here, I just want to kind of read some of this before I get you on with this. It's I say basically like page 36. So notes is please look at the last page of my comic book, blah blah, to see different things, how things look. I'm not gonna read all that. Um, I describe things like Cloud as blue elf that is shirtless and brown pants. Just describing who he is in my comic already, so he knows which one's what. His cousin is tied up in a black shirt. Skyla is the main character. I kind of describe what she looks like, and then she's already, I've already drawn her, so he can just look and go, okay, that's what she looks like. Panel one. So I go in a great detail. I'll just give one example of one panel. Cloud still sits on the sofa. He scratches the back of his neck as if thinking. Skyla is talking as well. Maybe she has her arm up, an angled view. Skyla could be closer to the camera. So I even tell like the view I want and everything. So I'm pretty much like directing exactly how I want it to look. It leaves very little room for the artist to to do any cinematography. But if I feel like they're a good cinematographer, then I'll just kind of describe the scene. They can describe how, they can be the cinematographer, figure that out. But until I have that confidence in them, then I'm the cinematographer in the writing part. And that's something you might want to consider too, is if you're writing a comic, is someone else is drawing it, do you want to be the cinematographer, or do you want to trust them? And I have Cloud, what he says. I have no idea why they walk north, and Skyla, what she says. And then panel 2, just really quickly, emotional face shot of Cloud. His eyebrows are pinched. His mouth open because he is talking. That's crazy. No one has returned face. And that's what I say. Emotional shot, face shot of Cloud's face, meaning that's just it's a panel of just his face, nothing else. A really close up shot so you can see his expression, that his eyebrows are pinched together, his mouth is open because he's talking. So that shows that he's like, that's crazy. No one has returned from those mountains, so it's kind of showing his personality, or his emotions to how he's reacting. And then panel 3, close up of Skylar's face. She looks worried. And so it's her, it's my aunt, I have to go. So now it's her reaction to what he said. And then panel 4 is she has the front door open. On the other side is Cloud's father. He looks familiar, or he looks similar to Cloud, but skinnier and taller. He is dressed in a shirt and pants. The father looks concerned. He speaks to Cloud. Father, this is the father talking. What's she doing here? Cloud says, I invited her, Dad. And that's that panel. And then panel 5, it's only a 5-panel page. Panel 5, it's a wide panel at the bottom of the page, so I describe exactly how I want the panel to look on the page. Cloud looks irritated. Skylar and Father talk. Father looks embarrassed. Skylar looks confused. And then I have their dialogue. So I describe exactly how I want it. In this case, I left the cinematography up to him. Do you want to just show kind of side views or angled views, things like that? And sometimes I'll even like do quick sketches of how I want things to look for like cinematography wise. But yeah. So I'm still, I still have a lot of work into what I'm doing with it, but I'm trying to stay away from as much as possible as far as like how much work I put into it. Let's go ahead and finish off some of these details here. And this is where, Google SketchUp really can save a lot of time. And I show in the course, the backgrounds course, how to use Google SketchUp like this to help you get a basic composition. That way it'll help you with a lot of the details. It also helps with a lot of the perspective and stuff. That we don't have to really think about all that and work all that out. Now notice a lot of these lines I don't actually draw all the way through. And that's to just show that, hey, it's background information. It's not all that important. It just shows some level of detail, and also to save time. Notice I didn't use a lot of this stuff that's in there. I just used part of the church because I wanted this look of this scene is actually a scene from one of my stories. And where did that blue line come from? Okay, cool. This is a scene from one of my stories, and I wanted that to show through that this was basically a temple in the screenplay. It's actually not a story, it's a screenplay, a full-on movie script screenplay that I got to flesh out a little bit more before I want to submit it to some competitions. Anyway, so like I said, I do a lot of different stuff. I have a lot of different projects going at the same time. But what I wanted to show is that in the script, this was like it's a temple, and so it kind of has that kind of church feel to it, but it's a little more futuristic. And there's these two priestesses that are stone statues in the script, and describes it. And it's like raining and it's dark, and he comes out, so he's pulling his coat on. And I forgot to look at my sketch he covers all that, so there's no reason to draw it. Just wasting my time drawing stuff I didn't need to. Anyway, so in the script, it kind of describes, this is one of the scenes that I describe, and so I'm like, hey, I'm just gonna use something I've already done, like I already have details for. And that in this case is and I like some of that detail that I had there, but I don't know if I want all that detail there. Maybe this little window here is kind of cool. I'm not going to do the whole, just this part right here. I like that part. I'm going to kind of add the little thing. Yeah, it's just background stuff, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Unless you want it to be. It's up to you how much time you spend on it. So I still have to draw a lot of detail into the story here. But yeah, this is pretty much a scene as I describe it in the screenplay. Of course, I don't go through so many details and all that kind of stuff, but I do describe things like throughout the screenplay, things like this, like a booster type thing that boosts things going very fast and such, and the robots. And there's a lot of holograms. I want to add a hologram here somewhere. This is an actual robot, but in the thing there's also holographic type ads. So there are three-dimensional holograms that walk around and talk to you and display ads to you and things like that. I just didn't know if that worked as well for this and where I can fit it in, but I really wanted to fit one in somewhere. There's also even huge, like giants in the sky advertising, big holograms in the sky, and I wasn't having one in the background, but like, it just distracts too much from what I had already going on, so I decided not to do it. But those are some of the things I thought about as I was working on this. But yeah, I'm gonna turn this back on for just a second so I can see these details right here. And so it's a futuristic temple with the priestess, and they believe in like reincarnation and stuff, and they also believe in this concept called cycling. So they believe that once you become balanced, once your suffering becomes balanced, that you meditate, you can actually make yourself cease to exist. And people actually do it. They do disappear, but it turns out that it's a little different in the screenplay. What they thought is not actually true. It's not what you don't actually cease to exist. But anyway, that's what they believe will happen. Or actually, no, my bad. You can make yourself cease to exist. I'm sorry. She attempts to do it, but fails at doing it. Anyway, so I won't give away why, just in case I don't know someone ever wants to read the screenplay online or something like that, or it ever becomes something. Maybe I can afford to actually hire, some I don't know, maybe some animators. So if any guys out there are animators, it's a really really good screenplay. If any of read any of my stuff, like my novel or anything, then you already know whether or not I can write. Benny Nature's gonna be out soon. Woohoo! Got published. That's pretty awesome. Some of you might have read Benny Nature a long time ago when I used to have it online. So I'm gonna kind of add a little bit like a window type thing here. And a lot of this I didn't really know what to do with this. I'm not really sure what it was exactly, so I kind of wanted it maybe be the side of the building. I was gonna add some other details there, but I don't know if I'm going to now. I think I'm just gonna maybe add that kind of window looking thing there. Maybe even add that same kind of cross type design, but I'm not gonna put the actual little diamond in it. But yeah, so if any guys are animators out there or know animators that would like to work on something like that, let me know. It is something that I would love to be able to turn into. First I want to try to, finish the screenplay. It's not totally done yet. I mean, it's done. It's just it's a little short on pages. So for a sci-fi, I think it should be a little bit longer. I think it's 90 pages right now or something. No, I don't know if it's 90 pages actually. Each page equals, I think it's like 70 pages or something like that right now actually, and I want it to be like 90. Each page is equivalent, for the most part, filming time to 1 minute. That's how you write screenplays to pretty much follow that. Actually, I'm gonna keep that. I'm gonna keep the sketch there. I'm gonna do that in colors. So I want that to be like neon type glowing stuff. For now, I can go ahead and show this little dispenser type thing. This is like a nanobot dispenser. Um, Basically, in the screenplay, you have these wristbands on you, and at least the wealthy people do. People that can afford them have wristbands, have nanobot immune systems and stuff like that. And there's also people in the world that disagree with the whole nanite bot thing. They call you nans because they disagree with that you basically are artificial. Your entire immune system's artificial. You have these nanites that is microscopic robots living inside your body that have become your immune system, and they disassemble diseases and stuff and colds on the atomic level, so you never get colds or anything like that. If you break an arm, they repair it and put it back together like almost instantly. Like so, you look kind of like Wolverine, you just almost like instantly heal. But there's these little robots that are living inside you. If you're not sure what nanobots are, check them out. It's something that we're actually getting into now and starting to develop. And have the prototypes for and stuff. It's just gonna be a while until we actually have them. But anyway, so yeah, very cool stuff. And so you have these wristbands on you, and so you see he's holding himself here, like he's cold. But yeah, you have these wristbands on you, and they are pretty heavy. They have a certain density to them, but you also have augmented power and strength and stuff like that. So wearing this really dense bracelet is no big deal. Now, if one of us tried to wear it, it would like weigh our arm down, and we wouldn't be able to hold it up for very long because we don't have that kind of strength because they have augmented strength. But yeah, so you just tell it things like if you wanted, it can make little things for you, and it all depends on your wealth. So your how much money you make determines whether or not you have you know, what your nanites can make for you. So they're like limited to that's kind of how they control. They still have a monetary system. It's a little different because it's not money. Instead, they control you by how what your nanites can do. So if you want to like certain kinds of food and stuff like that, if you wanted it to build you certain kinds of food, you have to be in a certain bracket of income level. Otherwise, that thing can't build that type of food for you. And if you wanted, let's say a certain kind of car, it can't build you that car. And that you need one of your home boxes for a car. The little wristband won't be able to build something that big, but it can build a lot of things like hot dogs and things like that, or just whatever kind of food that they eat. It can build that for you. But if you were a more poor or richer person, a little pocket there, maybe a little arm pocket's kind of cool. And then we'll have his neck in here. But anyway, so if you were a poor person, it wouldn't, just to give an idea of modern day, it wouldn't build you like a Lamborghini, but it could build you a Honda, you know. And that all depends how much money you make and what kind of car or what kind of flying vehicle in this case it can actually build you. I'm just gonna kind of hint that his face is kind of like disturbed, because he's hard to see, he's far away. All right, let's see if the inks came out good. And it looks like they did. So, oh, that's right. I saw they do this one building right here. That's why it's good to turn off the sketch every now and then to make sure that you're on the right page here. These are like buildings, bridges that are going across buildings. Also, in the world, the cities are designed with levels. And I was trying to show that in the background a little bit, but basically there's actually sidewalks and walkways that are different levels, different stories up, and the higher you go, the more rich it gets. And the bottom levels is like left for like a bunch of the poorest of the poor, almost like castaways. And they kind of like built the city on top of the older city, and they left all the older type of buildings and stuff, like older technology, for all the poor people down at the bottom level, and all the rich people just kind of built on top of it. And so you have these cities that kind of go on top of each other. So you'd have like a building like this, and you'd have like this walkway, and this would be like almost like a sidewalk walkway going all the way around the building. Imagine kind of going around the building like that, and the building goes up again. So it kind of almost looks like kind of like Chinese buildings in a way. And each building is like that. And each building has its own walkway going all the way around it. And there's different levels. And then those have walkways that connect to each building. And so that you can walk from building to building on a whole entire thing. And some of them have huge entire platforms, out here like this you can walk on with trees and all that kind of stuff and so forth. So you basically have an entire level of city on each one. Think of like sort of like the Jetsons, sort of, but not really. For those that remember that cartoon. So I'm going to have some sort of billboard sign here. This is going to be a, I'm not sure what it's going to say yet. Something that fits into my world, like get your sex bots here or something like that. So I'll just kind of sketch it in there just so I remember. But this will be done with like neon. Maybe you'll have like a sketch of a neon lady like laying down. And then this is a rooftop here that kind of hangs over. And maybe it's got like shingles or something, just to kind of show it's like wood or something like that. Purposely make it to where everything's not even. These are like little windows inside the building. This is the door here. Oops. Actually, I don't really know if I like that door like that, so let's go ahead and change this. Anyway, in the backgrounds course, I'll be also, coloring this entire image to its completion. I might go ahead and do the real time for that for you guys too, because I know I'm probably gonna have to speed that up as well in the course, just because it's gonna be probably take me too long to actually do a real time of painting this whole entire thing unless I do it in parts. And I'm thinking about this is kind of like a reminds me almost like a a movie theater type window door. And maybe have like a bottom part of the building here like that. Or maybe I can add little details here and here like that, just kind of show that it has some marked up stuff and helps add detail to the world. All right, so there you have it. All nice and inked out now. The only thing I might want to do is maybe add some of these lines here. So let's go ahead and use a size 1 brush. And let's just kind of pull in some of these lines right here. There's really no sidewalks in this world, but I don't know, I figured for the sake of the comic version, I wanted just to use something that's kind of familiar. So there's sort of like a sidewalk thing here. And then all this is going to be like walkway. And I might have this all be, when it's all colored, this might be all like really cool, a lot of colors. And I want a lot of different colors, like yellow lights or blue lights on there, and like pink, and bright neon blue type colors for the different lights, casting their glare on the kind of wet ground. Because I think I'll have it where it was either just had rained or is raining. I'm not really sure yet. And it's going to be very atmospheric, but we also need to add the values and all that kind of stuff to it. But yeah, so as you can see, really cool. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I know it's a really long video, but that's how long it takes sometimes when you're talking at the same time to ink just the background. Now, honestly, it wouldn't take me that long to ink the background. It'd probably take me about 20 minutes, but still, that was if I just bust ass and just get right down to it and ink this whole thing out. But 20 minutes is still a long time to spend on just one panel. And usually you only have one panel like this every so often to show the scene, like per scene in your comic. You don't need, to show this kind of level. This was for world building and things like that. After that, you would go down into smaller scenes, and all you would see is like a little bit of the background, depending on what, where the scene is taking place at. But it'd be like just a little bit of this in the background you might show, and sometimes you don't need no background at all because it's just a close up of the person. And even in a movie, when you're filming with camera, notice that when you're really zoomed on a person's face, everything in the background is really blurry. So there's really no backgrounds, it's kind of like colors. And you can kind of mimic that same thing in a comic book. One thing I did want to do though is to show the X's or the squares on this part right here. Just to keep true to that fact it's a taxi cab. I know it's kind of weird, like why would a taxi cab be shaped like that still in the future? But I just thought it was kind of cool to have it be something that's still kept. And it also is it's a in the actual screenplay it's not like that, but I just thought it'd be kind of cool to have taxi cabs that are yellow with the black and white things on them, so it's like clear that hey, that's a taxi cab. All right, so hey, thanks for watching. If you guys enjoyed this, that's cool. Please, you can share these links with people. It won't let them view them. It'll say, hey, you need a subscription to subscribe, whatever. But they'll see me at the channel, or you can just like advertise my free channel to the people. And I really do appreciate that. Yeah, so if you guys have any requests, what you'd like to see in the future, let me know. What I might do, like I said, is to put in the coloring version of this, where I show how I color it in the real time version, because most likely some of this will be real time on the actual course. Like some of the beginning of what I talked about will be in real time. That will still be in the course. But then at some point it's like cut off maybe 5 minutes into it, and all the rest of it will be sped up really fast. Um, yeah, so, but yeah, I might go ahead and do the real time coloring because I don't think I'll be able to fit the real time coloring into the actual course itself. And there really wouldn't be any point to it anyway. Just, I'm going to show the major points on how to color and how to do certain things. And that's really all it needs to be there in the course because you don't have to see the whole thing colored down. The rest will be sped up with commentary. Thanks for watching.